It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host. We let him inside the studio rather than make him do it outside where it's 105 degrees. John Riley joins us. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. If you're thinking of projects inside the home, outside the home, you're going to need materials. If you want ideas, think DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. We got a zillion things to talk about, from baseball pennant races to NFL training camps to all things at the Olympics. Hope you had a great sports weekend. Are you ready to go back to work?
Back to work, covering what we love with sports. And yeah, it's been a great Olympics. The pennant races are getting hot. I mean, and the NFL's starting. There's a lot to talk about.
Now, a couple of business items. X marks the spot. This has been so cool. How many people view us on live stream on Mondays and Thursdays? And I asked people, you're on social media, will you join my Twitter All-Star team on X? And I use the phrase X marks the spot. I want you to follow me. Just log in at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090. Follow. Want you to join my Twitter All-Star team. Second item, you like sports? I write a ton of sports. You give me 5 minutes every morning, I'll give you every big story there is in the world of sports and a few opinions. It's on my website right there at the top of the screen, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Make it part of your early morning process. Just check my website. Another item, when you go to the website, there's a big orange box right on the right-hand side. It's called Hacksaw's Insiders Group. We want you to register so you get all the unique emails that we make available. We want you to share. We want you to subscribe to what we're putting up on the YouTube channel, because we do put a lot of stuff up there on the days that we're not doing podcasts, so do that. And when we're done with this podcast, you're going to take over this podcast. You watched it. Stake a claim. Want you to be part of what we call Fans Forum. And John's the one who developed this idea.
It's incredible how much we've got going on in this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, not only are we like sharing all the stories, got the Insiders Group, we got Fans Forum, excuse me, we've got all these clips that are going on social media, the Hacksaw's Twitter All-Stars. I mean, this is great. I mean, if you're loving in the world of sports, so if you have a question for Lee on anything in the world of sports, just type it in the live chat on Facebook, X, or on YouTube, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
Okay, we got a lot of topics on the table. We're going to go a lot of different directions. John wants to start like John always wants to start. Dude wants to talk pennant races.
Yeah, and the Padres, I was really worried about this Colorado series, but I think it worked out okay.
Padres have won 11 of 14. Here's the stat that nobody's paying attention to. Padres have one of the best records on the road this season, 31-23. And their pitching staff has held them in. They're finding enough offense to make this thing happen. We still have almost 2 months of baseball left to be played. Now, Michael King missed his last start because of this bruised calf. Threw a bullpen yesterday. They think he is going to start in the series in Pittsburgh. We'll have to hold our breath on that. They lose Stephen Kolek, the young rookie right-handed reliever, goes on the disabled list. He's got forearm problems. Joe Musgrove made a start, Lake Elsinore, on Sunday. Got banged around a little bit. I mean, when you give up 2 doubles and a triple in a Class A game, I don't know that that's a real accomplishment. However, he threw 45 pitches. I think 35 of the 45 were strikes. Now we have to see how he feels the second day, the third day after the max effort down and on the rehab assignment. They've told him you're going to make at least one more rehab start, so it might be another week out before he is ready to return. Meanwhile, Johnny Brito is just completely broken down. His ERA at El Paso, where they were trying to fast forward his progress to get him in the rotation, he's out. Forearm issues continue. His earned run average is 8.44. So the Padres right now are playing really good baseball. They're just beginning this long stretch, John, where they're playing a lot of substandard teams. They really need to beat the daylights out of these people to close the gap with the Dodgers, because the Dodgers are still 4.5 up, and the Dodgers are starting to get some of their injured guys back, and they think maybe they're about to hit the ignition switch and start again. I like what I see from the Padres right now, but they got to keep doing this going forward.
What is it about Colorado that just seems to get the Padres number here? I mean, that game 1 was just awful. It was so frustrating to watch.
Please explain how the Rockies, with a threadbare roster and virtually no pitching, how they could beat the Padres 5 games in a row.
It doesn't make any sense, and then the Saturday game was close. At least Sunday, they were able to blow it out late. But, this is a great time of the year, and the Padres are shockingly in a good position. They're in position to be in position, as they say. I'm feeling encouraged because it wasn't too long ago that they were like 9 games out of first, now only 4.5. And last I checked, aren't they in first place or second place for the wild card?
Exactly. But there's a whole traffic jam there, and who knows what's going on behind them, because there's some people that all made deals at the trade deadline, and this sucker's going to kick in. In Arizona, they added all these relief pitchers, and they're getting their injured starters back. Arizona thinks they're going to be a player in this, even though they're behind the Padres in the wild card race. Atlanta is really faltering. They got so many injuries. Everyday lineup and their pitching staff. I mean, the Padres conceivably could get the top wild card spot, but the Padres could also fall out of the sucker if they stop hitting again, or if they have any more pitching injuries. So it's going to be fascinating as we go through the final 7 weeks of the baseball season. So that's the Padre update. Let's go to Los Angeles.
Yeah, the Dodgers. Good news and bad news. What do you got, Lee?
Yeah, let's go a couple different directions. We obviously have been following extensively the loss of Freddie Freeman, the big hitting first baseman who left the Dodgers more than a week ago. His 3-year-old son, John, is the scariest story you could ever imagine. Hospitalized with a nerve disorder and full paralysis when they took his 3-year-old son, Maximus, to a hospital. They got him in on time. They have stabilized him. He was on ventilator for almost 3 full days. A 3-year-old on ventilator because of this virus infection that affected his nerve system. He was in almost total shutdown mode. They rallied him. They brought him home this morning. I've seen pictures of him. Baseball's players, it was enormous. Baseball players reached out on social media and asked everybody to pray. Tough time. Freddie Freeman is back at Dodger Stadium this afternoon. He will rejoin the Dodgers for the Phillies series. But, we think of these players and we think about success on the field, and we think about all the money they make and star status, and you lose sight they're human beings. Their kids get sick, and in this case, the scariest thing possible. And this happened while Freddie Freeman was at the All-Star break. His son got sick, picked up a virus, had never had this before. It's a rare degenerative disease for a child. Most people who get afflicted with this nerve disorder come back, but this young man can't walk now. He's got use of his arms back, but he was very, very sick, and they were within hours of possibly losing him. And modern medicine, phenomenal. So quite a story involving Freddie Freeman. I would have never thought, covering the Dodgers this season with this roster, with Showtime, I'd ever be talking about Ohtani going 0 for 15. But I mean, that's what happened because everybody was out of the lineup. I mean, there is no Mookie Betts, there is no Max Muncy. Then Freddie Freeman had to take the private leave of absence. It was Ohtani against the world, and he went 0 for 15. Now he has started to hit. Look towards Thursday. Thursday, Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Tommy Edman, Miguel Rojas will all play simulated games. They've all been swinging bats. It looks like this group could collectively return to the Dodger roster maybe by the weekend, or definitely probably by the first of next week. And Yoshi Yamamoto throws 20 pitches, full max effort bullpen. Looks like he's slated to go do one rehab assignment. They think he's going to be back. Walker Buehler just continues to scuffle. Oklahoma City, last rehab start, 2 1/3 innings. I think he gave up 2 runs, 4 hits, walked some batter. He's just not right. He's not in sync. And they told him, you're going to stay at Oklahoma City. So that's what's going on with the Dodger notebook. And John Riley says,
Well, you were saying that Max Muncy might not come back this year.
He was having problems, and all of a sudden, last week, the pain went away. And they've had him on all types of stretching regimens and because of the oblique. And I feared that maybe there was some type of tissue tear inside that oblique, which you have to take care of with surgery.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, last week, he started to feel better. And they've had him on every type of weight training program to try to solve this. And all of a sudden, now he's swinging the bat and he's doing baseball-related things. And Thursday, sim game.
Wow. I mean, so not only is the cavalry of pitchers coming back, but same with the position players. Mookie is just such a fabulous player. I mean, the Dodgers are going to make a big leap forward when he returns. But just talking about Freddie Freeman and his family, obviously a tragic, everyone's heart goes out. And you like to see that, especially we might have rivals on the field,
Sure.
but when you get down to the people level, we are all supportive. But the kid's name is Max Freeman. And that
Maximus Freeman.
Maximus Freeman. So that means he's a strong kid and he's going to fight his way through this. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal outpouring on social media. Players from all different clubs were jumping in and asking for prayers. So thumbs up to Freddie Freeman. Last topic on the table as it relates to baseball teams here in Southern California.
The Angels. What is going on? I mean, we're still shaking my head with these guys.
Well, I'm still shaking my head. I mean, I asked the question, how the hell they won 41 games? They've had so many injuries and they've let all these players go and they can't keep veteran guys healthy, etc. They had an incident on Saturday that was amazing. Ben Joyce, high draft pick a couple of years ago. He's become their closer. That's why they traded Carlos Estevez to the Phillies. Ben Joyce in the ninth inning was clocked at 104 miles an hour.
Holy crap.
Yeah, J.D. Martinez was at bat in the ninth inning for the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
He said he's never seen velocity like that. He said it was at the plate, and he could hear the ball go through the wind. Whoosh.
Oh, yeah.
And he struck out on 3 pitches. And he hit a grand slam home run the prior at bat for the Mets.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And remember when Aroldis Chapman was like lighting up the
He
gun?
first came in with Cincinnati. He was from Cuba.
Yeah,
he threw 103.
Yeah, I was going to say, but he never got as high as this guy with the Angels.
I've never heard that.
That's amazing.
So, and the other baseball story, I don't know how this is ever going to end. I don't know how this is ever going to change. Mike Trout re-tears the meniscus left knee, will have another surgery maybe as early as this week. Mike Trout in 4 years, the last 4 years, John, has missed 382 Angel games.
That's like almost 100 a year.
He just can't. Yeah, and he's hardly played any games after the All-Star break because of all these significant injuries. He just cannot get out from underneath the injury cloud, and they still owe him, I want to say, at least 6 more years on his contract.
Unbelievable.
382 missed games. Wow. He's played like 210 in that 4-year window. Amazing. So that's the Angels story, the Padres story, the Dodgers story. We got a pennant race here to talk about. Somebody's a baseball fan. Jump into the chat box on Fans Forum and join us. You got one other baseball question here, John.
Yeah, the Giants and the White Sox. Both are teams going in different directions.
So you got Blake Snell. Blake Snell, who held out, ex-Padre, ex-Tampa Bay, Cy Young Award winner. Blake Snell gets there and gets lit. His first group of starts was miserable. Had an ERA north of 12. Then he gets hurt. So he's out for weeks. Comes back to pitch for San Francisco. His last 5 starts, his earned run average is 0.55. Awesome. His last 5 starts. But you already gave him all this money, didn't do anything the first half of the season like he didn't do in San Diego either.
But he's doing exactly what we expect, right?
Yeah. But why didn't they trade him? Oh, I forgot. You're a Giant fan. Are they in the pennant race or out of the pennant race?
I'm not sure.
Because they got rid of Soler and his big contract, but they kept Snell, whom I thought would have brought them a bonanza of prospects from the Yankees. And then there's the White Sox. Holy cow. They have lost 20 in a row. So the White Sox are within 1 game of the American League record. Frank Robinson was a first-year manager in Baltimore. They lost 21 straight to start the season, 0-21. So the Chi Sox are 1 loss away from tying the Oriole record. The all-time record was set in the 1960s by the Philadelphia Phillies, who were in a pennant race with Gene Mauch, and they lost 23 games in a row at the end of the season when they lost all their starting pitching. All their starters broke down.
Wow.
So Jerry Reinsdorf, I wonder what life is like for him, the man that used to own the Chicago Bulls, who owns the White Sox, has created this, allowed this disaster to go on. What a terrible situation. 20 losses in a row, and I see no way they can win because I've traded all their quality players away.
It's funny how in the NFL, we always say it's probably harder to go 0-17 than 17-0, right? And here they've gone 0-20, I mean, which is amazing. I saw a video clip of former Padre Steven Wilson getting removed from the mound, and he walked past the manager. He was pissed. And he's not happy there. It's got to be rough on those players, all that losing.
Yeah. And, they, of course, traded Dylan Cease to the Padres in a really significant early season trade. And they got back a really good young pitcher, Drew Thorpe, who had come from the Yankees in the Soto deal. But now Thorpe has been shut down, injured forearm, MRI. They hope it's not an elbow ligament, but he's got an injured forearm. Looks as if he's going to be out for an extended period.
Fire AJ Preller.
Yeah, blame him for that too. All right, so that's the latest in baseball. Feel free to jump on board. You got questions. The Fans Forum chat box is now open for business. We get to halftime. Man, and we got a hell of a lot of other things to talk about in the second half. This podcast is brought to you by the guys that we do business with, DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you, and the new one opening in Orange County. Plain and simple, if you've got projects, these guys have the material. I don't care whether you're going to redo the kitchen, whether it's flooring, whether it's tiling, whether it's closets, whether it's cabinets, whether it's something outdoors for the patio, whether it's something in the man's cave. You got projects, as John will attest to. We both use DIXIELINE lumber, and we're pretty pleased.
Let's go. Yeah. I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shoot tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. I'm never gonna look back. 'Cause damn, I was built to last.
And just a couple of other reminders. We're looking to grow my Twitter all-star team on social media. X marks the spot. You do stuff on social media, want you to follow me. Just punch in my slug line at Hacksaw1090. Follow at Hacksaw1090. You like sports? First thing every morning, you should read what I write. It's bleeping brilliant. We cover everything in the world of sports. Just go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com. You got the best 15 minutes in sports page. You got my one man's opinion page, the Hacksaw mini polls. I ask unique sports questions every day. So make it part of your early morning. And when we're done with this podcast, him and me, we are going to talk to you. We call it Fans Forum.
Fans Forum. It's where you can get involved. You got a question for Lee in the world of sports, just type in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. And, Lee, we love to get the live stream viewers in on this. We get the social media people involved, and sometimes they're asking questions about teams or different sports, but sometimes they're just loving you or hating on you.
Oh, there's a few of them around right now. So join us. Make sure you're with us, Fans Forum. I don't know very many. Are we the only ones doing this? Because we're the first ones that had a mascot for our podcast, but are we the only ones that are actually doing this type of fans interaction?
Well, there are other podcasters that do integrate the live chat in their show, but I'm not sure if they necessarily have a segment for it that it's exclusive, like the way we do it.
You own the back end of this podcast. You have a responsibility to join us at the end, Fans Forum. All right, John, let's go to the second half because we're ramping up in the National Football League.
The National Football League. Look at this. The kickoff rule is something I want to learn more about.
Okay, let's talk top to bottom across the different pages. We knew this was a controversial jury decision in the NFL antitrust lawsuit, Sunday Ticket. And the allegations, the NFL fixed the prices because they let Fox and CBS in on the negotiations. And the end result is they got sued, an antitrust violation. The jury found the NFL guilty. Thursday night, the judge met with the lawyers as the NFL formally appealed the decision of the jury. He met with them, and the judge made the comment on Thursday night, the jury did not follow my instructions about how to come up with the monetary damages. I gave them a model that they needed to consider to determine the dollar damages. They considered something totally different. And the end result was $4.7 billion in damages. And because it was an antitrust violation, it was tripled, $14.9 billion total.
Jeez.
So on Thursday, the judge took in all the paperwork. Yes, NFL has now formally appealed the decision. On Friday night, out of the clear blue sky, I get a text, a bulletin. I was in West Virginia, and the text says the judge has overturned the entire case, has thrown it out of court because the jury made all the wrong decisions as it relates to the financial penalties. So now, again, I cut law school the day they taught it at university. I went drinking uptown. I know you didn't. So when he throws this case out of court and overturns the jury's verdict, does it automatically go back to retrial? Or do the injured fans and businesses that filed the suit have to file? Or can he just set aside the financial award and come up with his own financial terms? So where does it go next?
I'm like, again, this is way above my pay grade. But
so you cut class too, you liar.
So my guess is that, there's two parts to it. They're going to say guilty or not guilty.
They were guilty of collusion.
Okay, so that is handled. Then the second part is what should be the compensation? And it seems like the judge should be more involved in that, because if you just let 12 people in a room to decide how much compensation, like you said, they ignored the model. And this is what makes the antitrust so screwed up, because now they could just say, we don't like the NFL, a bunch of money grubbers. We're going to stick them as much as we want to, rather than doing something that's rational and fair and balanced.
So we don't quite know what's the next step. Do the citizens who are part of the class action suit refile and take it to the state court of appeals? Or does the judge come back and make his own financial decision on damages? I'm not quite sure.
I don't know. I can only surmise.
Lawyers' line is open. If anybody who's got a law degree from Georgetown University, feel free to jump on board. Kickoff rule. We talked about this months ago, and I watched closely the Chicago Bears, Houston Texans Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio, and I looked at the formations and said, holy cow, does this look strange? Is this weird? And I don't think the coaches have a handle yet on how this is actually going to play out. They kick off from the 35-yard line, but everybody lines up at the other guy's 40. And we're talking about the gunners going down the field. They all line up, but they're stationary. The blockers on the kick return unit line up at their own 35. So you got this whole mass at the 35 of my guy returning kicks, and all your guys covering the kicks are at the 40. But nobody can move until the ball is fielded by the guy back on the goal line or the 10-yard line or whatever. And the minute the ball is fielded, then they have 5 yards. They take off and they block. It's the strangest looking thing I've ever seen. So they had 8 kickoffs in the Bears-Houston Texans game. 7 of them were returned an average of 26 yards per kick return. So that is better than the league average last year. There was only 1 touchback on the whole thing. But already we can see teams fudging and cheating, and there were penalty flags on some of the kickoffs where the kick cover team coming down, they were moving their personnel, not down the field, but moving them. You're not supposed to move. You're supposed to be stationary. And the blocking, instead of having all your blockers up front at the 35, teams were dropping their blockers back with the return man right behind them, so that have extra blockers there. And that's a violation of the rule too, because you're supposed to have all your guys at the 40-yard going in and the 35-yard coming out to block. You're not supposed to have up blockers by your kick return guys. So I don't know if they've created a monster. I understand what they're trying to do to make the game much safer because of the violence of the collisions and concussions and all that. This is so out of sync and so strange to watch. We watch exhibition games start this week. I mean, around the league, there'll be games all over TV. You watch it and tell me if you understand what the hell's going on, because I don't think the coaches do.
Well, there's multiple parts to this, because there's obviously how they line up and where the blockers are, and that's kind of weird, looks different. The kicker's by himself right down on the other end of the field. But the thing that I've always wondered about is, even with the old kickoff rules, the kickers can easily put it into the end zone for a touchback, right? And so, but now a lot of times they try to make it land around, the goal line or the 1 yard line, so they have a chance to
pin guys back, tackle them and stop them.
So they don't get to at least the 25, or maybe they can stick them at the 15 or something. But have they ever thought about moving the kicker even further back? Because if they can kick it into the end zone anytime, it just seems like it's got a lot of weird incentives.
Well, the feel is there's a dynamic to kickoff returns. You didn't follow Devin Hester, Chicago Bears, 19 touchdowns on kickoff and punt returns. They want that electricity as part of the game, but they're trying to take the danger and the collisions, the violent collisions, out of the game, which is why the guys going downfield start at the 40 and the blockers are just 5 yards away from them at the 35. So they're trying to stop that and give those guys more lanes to be able to explode and run up. So,
well, once they get through that initial wave of blockers, there's probably no one on defense behind them.
The kicker.
Except the kicker, exactly.
But can you get through that traffic jam of bodies?
Right.
And then you're going to see special teams coaches are going to rig this where not everybody is going to wind up going down at the 40-yard line and going in. They'll drop guys back.
Yeah.
They'll kind of be back there to tackle. Again, it's all to try to stop the horrors of real high-speed collisions. And that's become a real problem in the NFL. But I guarantee you this weekend, you watch NFL games, Chargers and Rams open preseason, you're going to look at that and say, what the hell is that? That's really strange. Next topic. Chargers had a joint workout, Rams. Chargers defense just beat the hell out of the Rams and Matthew Stafford. 3 interceptions, 2 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries. Charger defense was blitzing Matthew Stafford. Now, everybody who's a Bolt fan, the 11 people in L.A. that are Charger fans, all excited. Well, let's understand the Rams did this without 3 of their top offensive linemen. And I was surprised Stafford was allowed to stay in there. Now, it was not full-duty tackling nor sacks, but he was under all kinds of pressure all the time. But the Chargers lost another player. They're already without Justin Herbert, and now Ladd McConkey goes down with a leg injury.
Oh, wow.
So that's a bit of an issue. Now, luckily for Herbert, they've still got another good 4 weeks of training camp to get him back off this arch injury. So that's something to pay attention to. Miami, they gave Tua Tagovailoa phenomenal amount of money, $55 million a year amount of money, on a contract extension a couple of weeks ago. And then over the weekend, they gave Tyreek Hill an upgrade. 3 years, $90 million, most all of it guaranteed. So Tyreek rockets to $30 million per season. So that's a story there in Miami. San Francisco, keep an eye on this because the stories are flying as of noon today. The 49ers have changed their mind, and they're going to trade Brandon Ayuk. And they reopened talks over the weekend with Pittsburgh. The Steelers supposedly are closing in on a deal. It might involve the first-round draft pick, or it might involve one of the Pittsburgh's key defensive players. But evidently, San Francisco's just kind of reached the emotional finish line with Brandon Ayuk. Love me not. I understand economics 101. Why aren't you taking care of me? It goes on and on and on. I would have thought at the end of the day they would have traded Deebo Samuel, but maybe. And Samuel's got a big money contract, but it's a multi-year deal. But maybe Samuel is not viewed as dangerous as a wide receiver as Brandon Ayuk. This would really be out of character for Pittsburgh to take on that type of contract, because they would have to give Ayuk $25 million a year. Pittsburgh historically has never done that. Granted, Ben Roethlisberger was a superstar, and they gave him mega money. But this would be really out of character for Pittsburgh to do it. But as of noon today, as we were getting ready to come on with this podcast, that is the story. And everybody wants their contract renegotiated. Hell, I want my contract renegotiated, John Riley. Trent Williams, Pro Bowl left tackle, San Francisco, still out of camp. He's being fined $50,000 a day. He doesn't care. Trent Williams has got 3 years left on his contract that currently pays him $21 million per season. He wants that ripped up. He wants to be taken care of. He wants state-of-the-art money because everybody around him has gotten state-of-the-art money. And now the offensive linemen are making $30 million a year. But he's got 3 years left on his contract. I don't know, these general managers, to me, it's almost like they're caving in. Rams, Sean McVay, he's had 2 really good seasons. It was supposed to be rebuild. 2 good seasons without any major injuries. He's lost 6 players in a week. Whoa. He just lost Paku Nakua, the wide receiver with a bruised knee, got hurt in this controlled workout with the Chargers. He's lost 3 starting offensive linemen. He's lost his 2 of his top 3 cornerbacks, and now he's lost Puka Nakua. So Rams are kind of reeling a little bit. You want to comment on the Chargers, Miami, San Fran, and LA?
Well, for the Niners, that's the right move to trade Brandon Ayuk, because if you've got a guy on your team that just doesn't want to be there, I mean, that's a lot of negative energy. And if they can get a first-round pick, great. But if he goes to Pittsburgh, yeah, they're going to have to pay. I mean, that's the going rate. I mean, if Tyreek Hill's making $30 million, then Ayuk probably deserves 25.
Exactly. Last topic. Watch the Hall of Fame ceremonies in Canton. I love the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You ever been there?
No.
You got to get out of the house more.
Yeah,
you know
I think so.
Okay. You need to go there. You need to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland.
Oh, I've been
there.
Be
in Akron, Canton. Okay, well, then you understand it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it was really cool. You know, and I thought it was so weird. Here's Devin Hester, Chicago Bears, 19 touchdowns as a return man that nobody ever did anything like that. He gets honored. He goes into the Hall of Fame. And we saw 2 great pass rushers, the monster of a man that was Julius Peppers from Carolina Panthers, and the overachiever, undersized pass rusher in Dwight Feeney at Indianapolis. They both went in. Andre Johnson, great wide receiver, 70 touchdowns, Houston Texans went in. So we listened to all the fabulous speeches. And then the final entrant. And it just kind of put a dagger in my heart because it's a prime example of the other side of the National Football League. I'm going to talk about the games and the contracts and the Super Bowl and the star players and big touchdown passes. Steve McMichael in a wheelchair. Legendary defensive tackle, the Mike Ditka era. Da Bears. He's dying of ALS. And he's a shell of a man now. And they took a picture. It was just really, I don't know if it struck me wrong, but it was just really weird. Here was McMichael with his family, and he's just emaciated. And he's not going to live very much longer. He's been in and out of the hospital since they called him and said, you're going to the Hall of Fame. And here is this man who's so frail, surrounded by all these legendary Bears wearing their gold Hall of Fame jackets. And I just thought to myself, that's the dichotomy of the NFL, how great it can be. But look at the damage the NFL can do. It was just kind of took the fun out of the ceremony because we were also dealing with that piece of Steve McMichael reality. And John Riley says,
well, that's heavy.
Yeah, real heavy.
Yeah, that is. And you're right. I mean, there's just a lot of, people that are getting CTE and all kinds of other injuries that have just destroyed their lives. But, it's kind of cool the way that the existing Hall of Famers are like their own little mini fraternity.
Sure.
And they support their guys. But what's weird to me is as I've gotten older, there's a lot of guys that are younger than me that are going into the Hall of Fame, or guys from a more recent era. Sometimes it's hard for me to compute,
It is. It's weird for me because as a longtime voice in the Chargers and the Seahawks, I broadcast games that a lot of these guys played in, and they were really great players.
Yeah.
And you think, God, are they that old? They've been retired that long? Am I that old?
We're all that old.
Yeah, very much so. So Hall of Fame. So listen, if you've got an opinion, did you watch the Hall of Fame speeches, the induction ceremony? Did it strike you with the happiness we saw with Devin Hester and his exuberance and all these other guys and saying thank you for the people that influenced them? And then we have to watch and observe and understand this is the other side of the National Football League that hardly anybody ever wants to talk nor touch nor see, the Steve McMichael sad story. So it's quite a story.
It is. I mean, that's a lot.
So Fans Forum is open. You got football questions, answers, responses to what we've just said. Jump on board. So we go from that to college football. Michigan State. NCAA and lawsuits. So we know that Michigan got in hot water during the Harbaugh era because of violations of recruiting during the blackout period and COVID. And a whole bunch of people got suspended, including Harbaugh, including the new head coach, Sharon Moore. Illegal contacts when it was supposed to be a dark period where nobody was supposed to recruit. They did. They got caught. They got tagged. Now there's a notice of allegations of a second series of rule-breaking violations committed by Sharon Moore at the University of Michigan again. And this has to do with all types of recruiting violations as it relates to players at the University of Michigan and the illegal scouting situation a year and a half ago with a guy by the name of Connor Stallions. He was an assistant on the staff who illegally went out in person and videotaped opponents' games so they could use it to scout. He left the university just like that. Now we find out that the new head coach at Michigan, Sharon Moore, had access to texts between Connor Stallions and the coaching staff about what he saw, the data he was providing to Michigan. And Sharon Moore has been implicated now by the NCAA deleting and hiding all those text messages from the scout in the field. Sharon Moore, I think, is going to get suspended again. Harbaugh said, I had no knowledge. I find that hard to believe because he has knowledge and fingerprints on everything. But at this point in time, he's not in college football anymore, so they can't really do much more to him except maybe ban him forever for coaching again. But the Michigan head coach could be in big trouble. The other story, just up the road in East Lansing, Mel Tucker got fired last offseason. Mel Tucker, guilty of sexual harassment, having a relationship with a woman that he brought in to speak to his players about sexual harassment, sexual rape, and all that on campus. And then he got involved in a, quote, affair and then tried to hide it and cover it up, refused to cooperate. He's owed 8 years, $80 million on his contract. He says he was illegally terminated. Michigan State says, no, you were not. You violated all this and you did not cooperate with our probe. You lied to us, etc. He's suing them for all $80 million at Michigan State. So you want to talk about the Wolverines? You want to talk about the Spartans? Go ahead, John.
Just a lot of people jockeying for position here. It's the Big Ten is supposed to be this first-class conference, and look what we got going on here.
Well, that's true, but that's the exception to the rule.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the SEC, which stands for sure everyone cheats.
Yeah, that's a little bit different. I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of the Team Canada soccer coach with the drone, going out looking at the other practices. Now, clearly that's a violation of rules, like, scouting other teams with your own secret camera guy. But a lot of, again, these recruiting violations during dark periods, I think is a bunch of BS. Now, granted, they definitely violated the rule, but it's a bad rule in the first place. I mean, coaches and players and recruits should be able to talk whenever they want to talk. And then it was all during that COVID time where there were all these weird rules and everything. Did he violate them? Yeah, probably. But I think it's a dumb rule in the first place.
Okay. This guy's rather liberal. You know how he is. Okay. So we got that to talk about. Let's talk about what we saw on TV on the weekend. Let's talk about all things Paris, France.
Yeah. Look at this Olympic board. I could barely fit it in there.
This is cool. We have followed the greatness, the events, the stars, etc. I'm going to run through some headlines and give you some differing opinions. Simone Biles, I don't know if you know, she fell off the balance beam today in her final event. She fell. She didn't win a medal there, but she finishes up with 7 golds for her career now. And she says she may come back in 2028. She was absolutely amazing. And of course, I did the commentary last week that she should get another gold medal for what she's done for the mental health of all kids and all athletes by speaking out what she did during the Tokyo Olympics, leaving, etc. I got a bunch of really nice emails from people, including parents, that said, right on, what Simone Biles has done to become the voice and the face of, I have a problem, I'm asking you for help. For her to do that has meant an awful lot to the young kids of America. She also made a political comment. I don't know if you caught wind of this one. Holy cow. So we have the former president, Trump, who just opens his mouth and all kinds of junk comes out, So he appears before black journalists in Chicago last week and just spouts all the stuff about immigration. And he says, migrants that they've allowed to come across the border, they're taking all the black jobs. And the Chicago Tribune reporter, African-American, said, how would you describe a black job? And Trump didn't really have an answer and kind of meandered around it. Anyhow, Simone Biles is all offended by this. At the Paris Olympics at a press conference, she's closing out a press conference. She says, by the way, I really enjoyed my black job.
Awesome.
Take that, Trump.
Yeah,
Holy
right on.
cow. So Simone Biles, really strong. We talk about comebacks, and the Biles comeback from the mental health issue is just absolutely phenomenal. Well, how about SUNI Lee? Do you know in the third week of January this year, she was hospitalized with kidney disease. She could not stand. She could not walk. Her blood counts were all upside down. She didn't know she'd ever compete again. SUNI Lee wins 3 medals in this Olympic, including 1 gold. That's coming out of the hospital at the end of January and getting back into training and just competing, and then competing at the national level, and then competing at the global level. Phenomenal. How about Katie Ledecky? Holy cow, what a career. And she's not done yet. She's got 12 Olympic medals based on swimming. And what I saw her do in the 1,500 meter swimming event, freestyle, phenomenal. I mean, that's like swimming a marathon, going 15 to 18 minutes at full speed.
Yeah.
Just absolutely amazing. So Katie Ledecky says she wants to come back again. Just talk about a couple of others. We're now into track and field week. High octane, high energy, high personality Noah Lyles. He has been talking for weeks about he's going to be the next Usain Bolt. Mm-hmm. And he's gone out and he won the world championships up in Eugene, Oregon, both the 100 and the 200 meter. And so he comes out and he doesn't run real well in the qualifying. He doesn't win either of the 2 qualifying events. And then he toes it. Coming off the line Sunday, he runs 9.79 and wins in a photo finish, beating a great runner out of Jamaica and beating his own teammate, Fred Curley, who finished 3rd. 9.79. And the stadium just erupted. Track and field needs personalities.
Oh, yeah.
In essence, loudmouths. But boy, is he good. And he's going to get... And the 100 is not his favorite event. His favorite event is tomorrow. Dude, it's a 200 meter. So he's going to try to be what Bolt was, which was get the gold in the 100 and the 200 simultaneously. We always talk about people accomplishing something in the reaction. Brett Fisher was just a distance runner from the U.S. Brett Fisher qualified to run the 10,000 meters, which is, it's a bitch at an event. He finished 3rd. He got a medal in an event nobody paid any attention to as it relates to him. All these Ethiopians and the Kenyans and a great distance runners are trained at altitude. And Brett Fisher, he finishes 3rd and gets the bronze. And then there's the swimmer, Ryan Murphy. This was so cool. So he finishes 3rd in his event. So he gets the medal. So he's in the pool and he's doing this, looks towards his wife and points. His wife holds up a sign that says, it's a girl. She was pregnant. They just had the test.
Nice.
He fell apart in the pool. That was so cool. Mm-hmm. She's giving him a high five. He's in the pool giving her a high five, and she's holding a sign. It's a girl.
Beautiful.
It was really neat. And how about the high jumper from Ukraine who trained in Kiev? Her house was destroyed. Half of her city is destroyed. And she won a gold medal. She won the gold medal last night. Just amazing. And then there's the pros that are playing in the Olympics. And of course, we've talked a little bit about LeBron James and Team USA basketball, et cetera, et cetera. Djokovic wins the gold medal in men's competition against Carlos Alcaraz. Scotty Scheffler comes from behind, catches John Rahm. He wins the gold in men's golf. Did you see them at the podium? They wept. They cried uncontrollably. Really? And these guys have won the biggest events in their sport, whether it's British Open, Masters, U.S. Open, Scheffler's dominance this season, Djokovic, what he's done to Wimbledon and all the other Grand Slams, they stood on the podium and they could not retain their composure as they played the anthems and people came with their flags.
Well, yeah.
They wept. I mean,
awesome.
that was really cool to see because these guys have everything in the world. And they were brought to their knees by the success they had playing for their flag. I thought that was neat. And could you please tell me why Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart are on my TV and your TV? I mean, isn't this a little overkill by NBC to kind of reach and put these people on like Snoop represents anything in athletics? And by the way, Snoop did time in prison for drugs and the death of a man. And he's now treated as mega celebrity. And Martha Stewart, she did the exact same thing in prison for breaking the law. And she's on, I don't know, your food channel or my food channel. Why are they on NBC on my TV during the Olympics? Please explain. Okay, so John, I threw a lot against the wall. Go ahead and comment on what Simone Biles represents. Comment about those that overcame the adversity and the kind of the cool stuff that we've seen.
Well, this is an amazing list of things here you have here.
I know what the hell I'm talking about.
You do. Yeah, you do. But before I just comment on those, I want to just say that the table tennis has been amazing, to watch how these people play a sport that I enjoy playing recreationally. And it's like a whole other level. And the shot put was awesome. And seeing those dudes train for that and prepare. I mean, there's so many great storylines.
Yeah, I think the NBC telecasts have just been fabulous.
Oh, yeah, they must make a boatload of money in advertising revenue, just the way they cook up all these storylines.
But what they spend to produce all these storylines, cover it with the people. And the technical people behind the scenes are just phenomenal people. Hall of Fame, creative genius type people. But go on, carry on with the rest.
Carry on. Okay. Simone Biles, unbelievable. SUNI Lee, both of them have movies made about them, But the interesting thing about Simone Biles that I was reading about this morning is that, in the floor exercise, apparently she went out of bounds and that cost her, but she still ended up with a medal because the tricks that she was doing were so much more difficult.
Yep.
And so it's interesting in gymnastics and in ice skating and certain sports, they'll present, what they're going to do, and then they execute it. And so it makes the judging very interesting in these sports.
Yeah, it's very, very, very subjective. And then how about some of the personal accomplishments of these people? It's a girl. And how about what the high jumper, what she did coming out of Ukraine? Holy cow.
Well, she's beautiful, by the way.
Yes.
And like she was wearing like blue and yellow eyeshadow, just for the Ukraine flag. And what a great story, to see someone from a nation just getting shellacked, that can come here and perform. All great stuff. But Snoop Dogg is great. He's like a cartoon character out there. And yeah, he had a trouble pass, but we've talked about second chances, Lee. And I like seeing Snoop out there. That's all good. And then the final comment. Scheffler win in golf is great, but what happened to our guy Xander Schauffele? He was leading after the third round.
Couldn't hang in there, and Rahm had a 4-stroke lead, and he let it get away from him. It was just, golf is golf. I'm sorry, the Olympics gold medal. I'd rather see the Masters and the British Open than anything else. But that's cool. But to see how those guys, these rich people who have everything in the world, just totally break down on the podium. Wow.
Well, they don't have everything in the world. They didn't have a gold medal,
they do now.
And now they're part of Team America, and so they got to be ecstatic about it. I mean, what a thrill. Because a lot of times for the pros, remember the pros never used to be able to go on the Olympics.
Sure.
So now they can do that. And what a highlight for their career. One comment about Team USA. What's your take on this whole Joel Embiid not playing for Team France thing?
Well, he grew up in French Cameroon, but he's a U.S. citizen. So he's got the choice to do either or. He's been really abused by the French basketball fans.
When he ever gets the ball, they're always booing him.
Well, he's not playing that much either. But, the big storyline ought to be Wembanyama. Just cheer the 19-year-old superstar from France. He's one of your own. And Embiid could have made any decision he wanted, and he elected to stay with his guys. He's had so many injuries that have kind of robbed him of the greatness of what his career would be. He used to be out here. He used to be at the University of Washington in the Pac-12 conference. And then he left fairly early, but he's had significant knee and leg injuries last 2 to 3 years. Just not career's not quite turned up, but boy, he's a stud. But he wanted to play with the guys. He wanted to play for the red, white, and blue.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but usually you would find that they want to play for the nation where they were born. But again, it's his choice. I mean, he's a dual citizen, so good for him.
Okay, coming up, Fans Forum. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you, and the brand new one up in Orange County. If you've got projects for the rest of summer or thinking about ideas for the fall, think DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. And again, quick reminder, X marks the spot. Would like you to become one of my followers on my Twitter All-Star team. Just type in my slug line @Hacksaw1090 and then follow me on Twitter. Want you to register, join Hacksaw's Insiders group. You can do that by going to my website and check my website every morning for late-breaking stories, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Do you think we have a few people with a few opinions about either stuff I've said or the junk that's come out of your mouth? Yeah, I guess we do. Here comes Fans Forum, John.
All right, here we go. Let's go to Greg. He goes, hey, Lee, what do you remember about Chargers kicker John Carney? It seemed to me he was kicking clutch last-second field goals in our run-up to the Super Bowl. Great show.
John's a great gentleman. John retired. I mean, this is a prime example of what being a kicker is like in the NFL, John. Carney got cut by 7 teams. He was all over the place. And they brought him in because the Chargers needed a kicker, and he kicked his way out of the team. He was here for an extended period of time and was a really good field goal kicker. John retired, I think, about age 38, finished up his career. I think it was in New Orleans, did very well, lives out here on the coast. He runs kicking camps for high school kickers and college kickers. And that's what he's dedicated the rest of his life to. Great influence, knows everybody everywhere, helps get kickers placed. It's just, he's just, the only word I can use to describe him is classy gentleman.
Yeah, I met him once, and I thought he was first class as well.
Yeah.
But isn't it cool when someone has a specialty and they just keep double downing on it? So he had the great career. Now he's running these camps.
And he's giving it back to the kids and their families to a degree. It's not free.
Yeah.
But what he does has great influence on these kids.
Well, your old colleague, Scott Kaplan's son, was a kicker, and I think he went to those camps.
Yeah, and his son, I think, might have played for 2 or 3 different universities as a kicker, and actually just graduated from university last year. But
Justin Kaplan, I think. Yeah.
John Carney, great gentleman. Next question.
All right, let's go to Callan. He goes, the NL wildcard race is quite a train wreck, or a NASCAR wreck right now. So many teams bunched together coming down the stretch run.
Well, I wouldn't call it a train wreck. I'd say it's pretty fierce competition, because you got the Dodgers, who are about to get the rest of the cavalry, maybe by the end of the week, back. I mean, to me, it looks like Mookie Betts is going to be the first one back. Freddie Freeman is back from the personal crisis at home. He is back, and he is playing for the Dodgers versus the Phillies. And it looks like Yamamoto might be one rehab start away. Kershaw is there. But, you got the Padres, who have done what they've done in terms of all the trades at the deadline to go get these 3 relievers, and that's hugely important. And right behind them, nobody's paying any attention to Arizona. And Arizona picked up multiple relief pitchers at the trade deadline, and they're going to get Eduardo Rodriguez, the big money free agent, who's hardly pitched at all this year because of forearm problems. They're going to get him back, and they've got, obviously, the Texas Ranger pitcher who's been on and off the DL all year, Montgomery. He's back. So all of a sudden, Arizona looks to be a person in the hunt. I don't know where the Giants are right now. I don't like their batting order, but there's no doubt that with Blake Snell dialed in with a 0.55 ERA in the last 5 starts, and they just got Robbie Ray back, who did really well in his first 2 starts off the DL, and you still got the Warrior and Logan Webb, but can the Giants score runs? That's just in the Pacific Division, chasing the wild card race, and then, we haven't even addressed what the hell's happening in the Central or what might happen in the East. I think the one that could be in real trouble is Atlanta. They have so many injuries to their everyday batting order and their pitching problems. Atlanta might fall out of this thing right now. But again, everybody's got about 50 games to play.
Well, while you were talking, I pulled up the list here on MLB.com. Atlanta and the Padres are at the top. They're tied, although there's a difference in games played. Arizona is half game behind them. Those are the 3 right now. I know Arizona, obviously, they were in the World Series. They're expecting to be there again. But look at the Mets are 1.5 out. The Cardinals are 3 out. The Pirates are 3.5 out. The Giants 4.5. Cubs 6, and Reds 6.5, if you want to go that deep. But that's a lot of teams.
a lot of games to be played, and some of them will be playing each other and knock each other out of this thing, and some of them I just don't think have enough. Pittsburgh, where the Padres go in Tuesday and open this road trip. Pirates are playing pretty decent ball, but that's almost an all rookie starting rotation. So you got injuries, you've got innings build up. These guys are going to hit a wall here pretty damn quick because they've thrown so many innings. Even though Paul Skeens, the number 1 draft pick, has just been phenomenal, there's going to be a limitation. And they got a lot of young everyday players who've hardly ever been in a pennant race. And there's a pennant crush. There's a pressure point there where these guys wake up and, oh my God, we got to win this game because it has playoff implications. Never been in that neighborhood before. So some of these teams are going to fall off the radar, I think.
Well, yeah, I'm sure a lot of them will be, oh my God, and then they fade away. But every once in a while, one of those young teams catches fire. And so, hopefully it's not the Pirates when the Padres are facing them. But speaking of Padres Pirates, how about that Martin Perez start, on Sunday for the Padres?
Surprised me.
So it's like 6 innings, 1 run. It's like, well, this guy was actually really good.
At least on that one given start, because he wasn't good prior to that. He was in Pittsburgh and ERA, I think, was 5.62. He was a hot prospect. Again, that was a guy that Preller had a relationship dating back to when AJ worked for the Texas Rangers. I mean, that's where he came from. But he's kind of moved around. There were some arm problems, etc. But as an insurance policy starter, if he can give them 5 to 6 innings and decent starts, and it's, he's not trailing 5-1 when they yank him out, hey, everybody needs a 5th starter, so hopefully his quality starts there. That first start was pretty good, but he hasn't pitched like that all year.
Yeah, well, I'll take that. All right, let's go here to Richard. Richard says, hey, the Padres get very emotional when they play the Dodgers. Beating LA is the very blood that runs through their veins. However, it disappears when playing other teams. LA still wins the division.
I think so. And again, the cavalry is right at the doorstep. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people who are going to come back. People that are with us on this live stream and people that read my website and read my columns, they just bash the hell out of me. Like, why do you hate the Padres? Or why do you hate the Dodgers? Or why are you rooting for the Dodgers? Or you shouldn't be rooting for the Padres, blah, 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 blah. That's okay. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, even yours that might be wrong. But think about this. Let's give credit here, because there are a lot of Dave Roberts haters lined up on the sidewalk. The Dodgers are still in first place. The Dodgers have had 17 pitchers on the disabled list this season. Every one of their aces has been hurt, and they're in first place. And they're still in first place without Mookie Betts and without Max Muncy for a large segment of the season. And they're in first place with the bottom half of their batting order for at least half the year, hitting like 118. It was terrible. And then they're still in first place despite losing Freddie Freeman because of the severe illness of his son, who left the club for over a week. Now he's back too. So I think you need to respect what the Dodgers have accomplished, because that's a truckload of adversity around them.
Well, of course, the Dodgers have had an amazing season, like you say, considering all those injuries. So I'm going to go back to this point that Richard makes, because he says the Padres get very emotional when they play the Dodgers. Okay, the fans get very emotional.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, the Padre fan, Dodger fan, I get it. And sometimes the players will feed off the fans and express their big emotion. I mean, we saw that the Padres-Dodgers playoff series a few years ago. But do the players themselves really have a bent up, hate of the other team? I don't think they do.
No, but I do think they get emotionally aroused when there's a big hit. And suddenly, I mean, I've been in that press box. I sat with Peter Seidler down in his corporate seats. I've sat on the 3rd level, section 3 ton, behind home plate on the right side. And just to experience a Padre Dodger rally, the stadium explodes. It's like being in an NFL stadium during the playoffs. I mean, the electricity is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's awesome what Padre baseball at Petco Park has become. And what ownership has done to sell the franchise, as competitive as the franchise has become, though they haven't gotten a World Series yet. What they've done at Gallagher Park, Tailgate, Park, it's just amazing. I mean, it's become a destination point. It's become a big thing. And when they're rocking and rolling, that stadium shakes. It's really cool.
Well, look at you hobnobbing with all the rich guys and the VIP
Name
seats. Name dropper. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's go here to Dale. This is kind of a hard hit here. Have you dropped political opinions yet, Lee? I like sports.
But according to the First Amendment, this guy must be a Trumper. That's okay. You're entitled to vote and root for whoever you want. You can use your First Amendment, but pal, I'm going to use my First Amendment. So yes, I have political opinions and I know where I stand on things and I know right versus wrong, but I'm entitled. You don't have to agree with me. Hell, he doesn't agree with me, but just respect what I do in the sports world.
Yeah,
because that's the only bloody thing that counts right now on this podcast.
Well, I mean, like a tiny fraction of 1% of what you talk about is politics.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of, it's just the general nature of society right now where politics sort of infecting everything. And it does cross into the world of sports. And like, you know, with Simone Biles and her black job, you know, so I think when it's appropriate, I think it's okay to talk politics.
So should I say what I really feel?
Of course, one man's opinion, baby.
Trump is pathologically immoral. Period, exclamation point, no further discussion. You can't change my idea. And if you try to change my idea, then you're trying to tell me January 6th never happened and the court cases never happened and the indictments and the felonies and the lawsuits never happened. All that stuff happened. That's one man's opinion on politics. But respect my ass for what I do in the sports talk world, because I think I'm pretty bleeping brilliant doing that.
Yeah, I want to talk sports and sometimes politics with you.
Imagine if I was doing a political talk show.
Oh, yeah. That'd be
Radio
something.
would be a little too hot to touch at that point in time. Dale, hope you'll stay with us as a sports fan. Next question.
I would love to actually to hear all the hacksaw shtick within the context of a political talk show.
Oh my God.
Get those phone lines lit. All right, let's go here to Phil. And he says, used to listen to you in the late 80s and early 90s via San Diego radio. I remember you scooping the Angels trade of Jim Edmonds to St. Louis.
Yeah, we did. Well, we were on the big signal on Extra 690. And our signal went everywhere. So we really kind of did a national West Coast talk show. And we'd cover all these teams on a consistently solid basis in terms of having insiders and getting tips and things of that. I like Jim Edmonds, man. He was a warrior as a player and as a personality. And it was a really good era. I mean, I was very fortunate because I talked my way into doing my show at Angel Stadium, even though we weren't the flagship station. They let me do what I did, and we do patio parties out front of Angel Stadium. We do it from the press box. We did it from the right field seats. And we were fortunate because that was the era of guys that I really liked and respected as players. Chuck Finley, Mark Langston, obviously Tim Salmon. And, I mean, the young shortstop, David Eckstein, at that point was young. I mean, there were so many great players just to be around, and had a good time covering the Angels, had a really good time covering the Dodgers. And I was based in San Diego. We brought my sports talk show to Vero Beach, historic Dodger town, Vero Beach. I thought I had died and gone to heaven doing our show from the pavilion at Vero Beach. I mean, that was such a cool thing. I was so sad because I'm a huge history buff, as John can tell you. John's visited my house, and my family room has wall-to-wall bookcases of books on history, big time. And we went to Vero Beach, and Vero Beach, to me, is the pantheon of a cathedral. Spring training for the Dodgers since 1948, Branch Rickey, Jackie Robinson, and all that. Just to walk those hollowed grounds. And I told somebody, I said, God, if this place could talk, could it tell you some stories about Holman Field and Vero Beach and all the great eras of Dodger baseball? So I'm a big baseball historian fan. So I was very fortunate because I was the first one took our sports talk show to Yuma, Padres back then at Ray Kroc Sun Stadium, I guess it was. And then obviously Cactus League. So we'd go over there every spring. And then I talked my way during the regular season. Hey, let's do something in Anaheim. We had a lot of listeners in Orange County. Let's go to Angel Stadium. Well, they let us in. They let us in. And so we did a whole bunch of shows there. And then obviously going to Vero Beach with the Dodgers was really, really cool.
Well, you told me that you were able to interview Vince Scully.
Sure.
And that was there, right? In Vero Beach. I just want to comment on Jim Edmonds because I remember Angels, but I remember him being really good with the Cardinals. And then near the end of his career, didn't the Padres trade? I was like Wally Whitehurst for him.
Yeah, he was hurt, though. He had a number of injuries towards the end of his career.
Jim Edmonds.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when we got him, he was a shell of his former self. Yep. And I'm like, oh, it's another terrible trade by the Padres. And then we released him. He signs with St. Louis. And suddenly he was great again. And I'm like,
Mhm.
God, this is San Diego sports curse.
Yeah, he was a warrior. He was a really good player and just a grinder.
Oh, yeah. And then there's always that one catch, where he was going straight for the wall and he caught it over his shoulder.
Exactly. Thank you for the memory lane on Jim Edmonds. Go ahead. Next question.
Okay, let's go to John. He says, hey, heck of a divisional race in the AL East. You got the Yankees, best team money can buy, and the small market Orioles tied, each at 67 and 46. That's going to be a fight to the finish.
Yeah, it's a real dogfight. The Yankees got something they really needed at the trade deadline. That's why I think the Yankees might have had the third best time at the trading deadline. I had the Padres and Dodgers kind of ranked 1A and 1B. The Yankees right behind him getting Jazz Chisholm. I thought that was hugely impactful because he can play multiple positions and he's got such a persona, but they didn't get pitching. And I went and looked at their ERAs early this morning. There's something else I was working on. And, Garrett Cole's ERA is 5.20. He has not come back to be the pitcher he was. And Nestor Cortez, who had a great season last year, his ERA is like in the sixes. Luis Gil, he's got 11 or 12 wins. He's going to pitch this week against the Angels. He's pitched well, but the Yankees are wafer thin in pitching. I was surprised they did not go get an arm because they do have a lot in their farm system they could have used as trade bait. But, and Baltimore is not really a small market. They have new ownership. The Angelos family sold the team within the past calendar year. Baltimore's general manager, Mike Elias, has done such a phenomenal job drafting, and they had lousy years. They had one season, I think they lost 119 games. They had some horrible seasons, but virtually every draft pick they got early, they signed, and they're all playing at Camden Yards now. When the Padres went in there about a week ago, John, 7 of the 8 everyday players, position players, were Oriole farm system players. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then Baltimore went out and traded for, Zach Eflin from Tampa Bay, and made another trade to get get Taylor Rogers. So Baltimore has gotten some insurance policy veteran pitching. And that's a really young team. It's one of the younger teams in Major League Baseball. Look where they are. So, yeah, American League East, it's a dogfight. And Boston is not viewed as being a big-time player in that division, but Boston's kids have just grown together. They might not make the wild card, but, if Boston can get some more pitching to go with their everyday players, Duran and all them, Raf Devers, that's going to be a really good team a year from now. But they do need some more arms at Fenway Park.
Well, okay, call me a hater, but I'm rooting for the Yankees to struggle, especially with the whole Juan Soto drama, and he's got 1 year left on the deal because I'm interested to see what happens to him in the offseason.
He's cooled off, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's get, he had, 16 home runs. Look at he split. He's only got 28 now. He's not hitting for power. Judge is having a superhuman season. Holy cow. I think Aaron Judge is hitting 332, and he's got 42 home runs now. He's just the sad part is Giancarlo Stanton. That was a budding superstar when he was in the Marlins, and he's had so many injuries. He's batting in the 240s. I think he's got 18 home runs. He's a shell of the player that he was when he was in Miami, when he was an absolute stud.
Yeah, the marquee players of the Yankees are obviously doing great. Some aren't doing as well. I love the kids in Baltimore. Orioles haven't been relevant in decades. But this is just a weird pet peeve I have about the AL East is whenever you look at the standings in the newspaper or online, the AL East is always first. You ever notice that?
I always thought the NL West was always first.
Really?
That's what I thought. Maybe my newspaper is different than your
I know.
newspaper.
I always see it as the AL East, AL Central, AL West, and then
NL East, NL Central,
and then NL West, and the NL West was always last.
I don't know. When we're done, you can go get your morning newspaper. I'm not quite sure on that, but it's okay. Go follow it. Next question.
All right, let's go here to Callan. He goes, the new kickoff rule is dumb, but not as dumb as having to declare to the opposing team, we're doing an onside kick.
Yeah, that's really strange. For the fans that don't know, at the end of last week, the NFL sent out a memo that we're making adjustments in the onside kick rule. You can onside kick, but you have to be trailing in the fourth quarter. You cannot do an onside kick any other segment of the game. And secondly, if you can onside kick, I have to tell John Riley there's an onside kick coming, which takes out the element of surprise. Maybe it's because there were to be such violent collisions. I don't know. They've taken that out of the game. But the new rule is for safety first and to allow guys to make explosive Billy White Shoes Johnson kick returns. And that's what this is all about, in addition to make it safer for the players.
Billy White Shoes Johnson.
There's a name out of history book.
Remember, he was one of the first guys in the end zone that would like
do the
his
dance.
And it was the Falcons, and I think the Oilers, right?
Oilers.
Back in the day. But yeah, it's the onside kick in the NFL is the weirdest thing. I mean, it's like the drop third strike in baseball. It rarely works. You know, it's stupid to have to declare you're going to do it. And it's stupid to limit them when they're behind. But I do like the idea that there's a way that the team can get the ball back quick. You would think it would be something that wasn't so bizarre like this.
Well, there was a bizarre Philadelphia Eagles proposal 2 years in a row. The league said, nah. There was a proposal that instead of an onside kick, which has dangerous factions to its execution, there was a proposal that was called a 4th and 21. If instead of an onside kick, you would try a 4th down and 21 play, and if you converted on 4th and 21, you get a first down a la an onside kick.
No, actually, I like that idea.
Yeah,
you know, I would even make it more. I'd make it like 4th and 35 or something. That's a cool idea.
Well, it was proposed, but was voted down as, that's too radical.
Well, the NFL are a bunch of conservatives anyway.
Well, up until this rule change, I guarantee you, you watch the games this weekend, John, and all of our people on live stream, you watch an NFL game and see the kickoff alignments. You say, what the hell is that? Why is it like that? And now the league's got their hands full because some of these coaches are starting to cheat. You can't put guys in motion. You can't move them around. They have to be stationary as the ball is kicked off. So, Callum, thank you for the input. Go ahead, John.
Cheat? What are you talking about? All right, let's go here to Kurt. He says, love listening to you on the Mighty 690. Just discovered you had a podcast. I'll be a faithful listener now.
Hear, hear. What you people need to do is a favor for me and a favor for John. Maybe you're doing it for him because you like him more than you like me. We just need you to market our podcast. We need you to tell everybody in your address book, everybody on social media that you hang with, communicate with. Hacksaw is back. And you tell them Hacksaw's podcast on YouTube, Mondays at 1 p.m., Thursdays at 1 p.m. They can decide whether they like it or not. Well, we're just trying to explode the growth of this thing.
Hacksaw in the 21st century, baby, bringing his 9600 baud modem with him, dialing in. All right, let's go.
And this is from a guy who's still got a Royal manual typewriter in his garage.
All right, here, let's go to CEB under par. He goes, hey, it was 108 degrees in Lake Elsinore. Kind of hard to get comfortable.
Oh. We do this from this Taj Mahal studio that John built in his castle here. It is so nice and so cool. I can't get my house to be this cool, though my house is sealed because of windows and doors of DIXIELINE lumber. Thank you. But I can't get my house this cool. But John has got solar panels.
Yes.
John does not pay SDG&E. A lot of us still do. So maybe I should just move in here.
I know. Yeah, we'll set up a cot right here in the podcast studio. It'd be perfect. But yeah, Joe Musgrove, was he pitching when it was 108 degrees?
Well, he pitched last night. It was probably pretty bloody warm. It's 105 in my driveway today in Rancho Bernardo. I was ready to wave the white flag. We're going to cook eggs on my driveway, on my black pavement in my driveway. I tell my friends, I love the smell of late summer. Late summer, they're repaving my street, which has got a zillion potholes in it. I love the smell of hot tar on a hot summer day in San Diego when it's 105 outside. Oh,
it's brutal. You know, I mean, we were just in a recently paved parking lot yesterday. We got out of our car and it was like walking into an oven. Yeah, all the heat was radiating up. I mean, okay, to get us started on.
I used to do Phoenix Giants game in the Pacific Coast League at Phoenix Municipal Stadium, which is in the east end of the city. And that was an old cement slab stadium. And I did PCL games in the summer, and that stadium baked all day. And you get there at night, the sun may go down, you just feel the heat radiating off the cement. It was just, I used to wrap wet towels around my neck or sitting there and doing a 3-hour Pacific Coast League game. Mark Grant pitched for the Phoenix Giants when I was doing Phoenix Giants baseball in the Coast League when I worked at KTAR.
Back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of people on social media that will say that, oh, I remember you from Phoenix.
Yeah. Mark Grant gave up one of the longest home runs I've ever seen, and I tell him about it all the time. The Dodgers had a power hitting first baseman and a power hitting right-handed hitting first baseman. One was a guy by the name of Greg Brock. You remember that name? Yeah. The other was Mike Marshall.
Yeah.
I can't remember who Grant gave up the bomb to. It was one of those first basemen. He launched that sucker. It's probably still up in orbit. I've never seen a ball. And again, that was dry heat. That was thin air. That ball got out of there so damn quick. It was unbelievable. I asked Mark, that ball ever come down yet?
When I think of Mike Marshall, he was either dating or married to Belinda Carlisle, who was the lead singer of the Go-Go's from back in the 80s. But, talking about hot, wait till you see Sacramento A's baseball this next year.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be brutal.
That's a hot box, too. Next question.
Okay, let's go to Paul. He says, be forewarned, the Pirates are no longer a substandard team. If the Padres take them lightly, they'll get their butt kicked.
The question is, does Pittsburgh have enough hitting? That's a real issue. I mean, there's no doubt they got some great talents come through the farm system, and everything on that pitching staff is homegrown, and that's really, really impressive. But in all honesty, Paul, you gotta be there. You gotta get through the playoffs, the pressure, and all that stuff, because the atmosphere really changes. I don't know if Pittsburgh is ready for it. Last year, Baltimore had that unbelievable season. And everybody was excited. The Orioles had finally arrived with all their kids, and they got to the playoffs, and they got taken out of the playoffs just like that. And that's a maturity experience factor. Pittsburgh still got to take the couple of those steps to experience it.
Well, they kind of crept into the wild card when no one was looking, right? It just seemed like, oh my God, Pittsburgh's on the list there. Padres need to take care of business. They seem to finally be in the right mindset, where they're not going to this herky-jerky, win a series, lose a series. 11 out of 14 ain't bad, so hopefully they can keep it rolling.
Well, they're playing the Rocks, the Marlins, the Pirates. That's what this 15-game segment is. If they're ever going to get to first place before the end of the season, it has to happen in the next 12 days.
Well, you said 15-0, I remember, but they're already now 2-1 since then.
Okay, so we'll go play the Pirates on Tuesday, and we'll just see where it goes.
Remember, just real quick, remember the Orioles and the Pirates World Series 79?
Manny Sanguillen, baby.
Manny Sanguillen. That was We Are Family, Willie Stargell.
Oh, it's a great series.
Wasn't that awesome?
Great. Baltimore, some of the greatest pitching staffs of modern-day baseball. There was about a 2 or 3 year window where the Pancake Palmer, Dave McNally, Mike Cuellar. They had a 4-man rotation.
Had 4 guys.
Yeah, it was really,
they all
really
won 20
good.
games that
year. Yeah. That was a special Orioles team. And Brooks Robinson at third base.
The human vacuum cleaner, Hoover. Okay, let's go here to Jason. He goes, Antonio Gates not being on the first ballot is lunacy.
Yeah, there was a traffic jam there. He's going to be on it, and he's going to get voted in. And, it's unfair to say, well, they never got to the Super Bowl. Well, that does not mean Antonio Gates or Tomlinson or Rivers wasn't great. They just never got to a Super Bowl organizationally. But, 900 plus receptions as a tight end, all those touchdowns for a guy that didn't play college football. That's the most amazing asterisk that goes on his stat sheet.
Well, he's a MAC guy too, just like you, right? Kent State. So, it was just it was a neat, the basketball story. And sometimes, again, I see some of these kids playing basketball, like that center for NC State that was in the March Madness. You're thinking, man, that guy could probably play football. I mean, Jaden Ledee could probably play some football.
Sure. Make him a tight end or strong side linebacker or whatever.
Exactly. So, but the Gronkowski is probably one of the best tight ends of all time. You got to believe, right? And then who are some of the other big names at tight end? The kid from the Chiefs,
Tony Gonzalez, and he was a former basketball player at Cal, and obviously, the 40
Winslow.
Well, Winslow, he was one of the first great tight ends, pass catching tight ends, and that was a byproduct of the spectacular things that Coryell did with mismatches. Coryell was, these are my skill guys. What the hell are you going to do about it? And by the way, he had Dan Fouts. So that was the thing that came together. And Winslow became just an icon for a chunk of years just because of the system he was in that predicated mismatches. You can't cover me because you got to cover all those guys. And, I think back, and I was in Cleveland at that point, and how the hell the Chargers never got to a Super Bowl with Fouts, Muncie, Pete Johnson, Kellen Winslow, Charlie Joyner, JJ, John Jefferson, Wes Chandler. They never got to a Super Bowl with that accolade of unbelievable skill people
And they had Fred Dean and Gary Big Hands
on the
Johnson.
defensive side of the ball, but
Yeah.
the defense wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Couldn't keep people from scoring.
Well, I'll tell you what, when Fred Dean came over to the 49ers, man, he was hella good.
Yeah, exactly.
But just one final tight end question for you. Back in that same era, Dave Casper from the Raiders,
Yep.
how do you rank him in the world of tight ends?
I'd say probably inside the top 10, but the careers sometimes get short because of injuries. So you can think about 80 catch seasons, but could he do it for 5 years in a row or 8 years in a row? I mean, Gates had 900 plus receptions for a guy who didn't play college football. I mean, that's the most astounding thing. And he opened the door for a ton of other people, because the minute that they found him, was it John Butler or A.J. Smith was the general manager at that point in time, everybody started looking at basketball players and say, maybe I can project him to build him into a tight end. And it was happening in a lot of different places around the league.
Exactly. Yeah. I love the innovation.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Let's take one more here. You got another one?
Yeah, I do. I got another one. Let's do a little social media here, and let's talk Olympics. And this is from David. He says, "Great segment again, Mr. Hacksaw. This is about Simone Biles. You are right on the money on this. It's a heartbreaking story, especially after being sexually abused by Nasser. Thank you for bringing up mental health."
Well, like I said, and for those who aren't aware, I did a commentary last week that she should get a, quote, gold medal in society for what she did to take a public stance of mental health. I have problems. I need help. Don't be afraid, if you have problems with depression, to raise your hand and ask for help. What that did for all young Americans, and what it did for just Americans across the board, because that opened up the door for other athletes to come front and center. It was like a tidal wave of athletes who said, yes, I have struggled with mental health and counseling or help through medications. It can be done. So, I mean, what she's done as a young Olympic gymnast to become a great leader for young America, I just think it's phenomenal.
She's amazing in so many different dimensions. But think about how far we've come on this, because you go back to the 70s and it was like Nadia Comaneci and all these other gymnasts all around the world. Pretty much every one of them was white. Even in America, our whole team were white. And then, come maybe the 80s or 90s, we began to see people of color that were on the USA team. And you're like, hey, right on. And now it's not just Simone Biles is winning it, but she's now become a superhero.
Yeah. And I think the other factor, as David has brought up and nobody's really talked about, virtually all those young American gymnasts were sexually abused by that guy, Dr. Larry Nassar at Michigan State. Oh, yeah. And he's in prison for life. And I bet we're going to walk up in here one of these days, and he's going to be dead in prison. But think about that trauma that all those young girls had to live through or live with, that they were sexually abused by this guy who was the U.S. Olympic gymnast trainer, in addition to being the trainer at Michigan State University. And they had to carry that, what happened to them. And that was a private thing, and it was a disgraceful thing. And there was probably guilt involved. And those young girls had to carry that in addition to whether they were fighting depression or depression was triggered by what happened to them. And then, by the way, go out and compete against the greatest in the world, too.
I mean, that's insane. I mean, I would melt under all that pressure, especially when you're in your 20s, or in some cases, your late teens.
Exactly.
So it's amazing that these young women have survived this and been such exceptional performers, including SUNI Lee with her own kind of, comeback story.
Illness, adversity, just absolutely amazing. Let's do a couple more social media.
Okay, let's go here. A little Padre talk. This is from James. This team has been irrelevant for nearly all of its 55 years. I'd rather gamble and see if it pays off than be stuck in mediocrity forever.
Well, they have gambled. I mean, they have forfeited the whole future. I mean, AJ Preller, that they may be upset with me because of the column I wrote last week, but the reality is he's traded the farm system away 3 times now in his 9 or 10 years, and they've still not gotten to the World Series. Has to happen now. And I think the potential is it can happen now, because it won't happen in 2 years. I mean, you trade that many hot prospects away, and you have all these 30-plus-year-old players under long-term contracts you're going to be stuck with, and there's nothing left in the farm system. I think El Paso is 25 games under 500 in AAA right now. That's not good. And the same thing's happened in San Antonio, too. So they made a commitment. This is the way we will conduct our business. Hopefully, we're going to talk about baseball in October. I mean, it'd be phenomenal for the community to get to the World Series. If they don't, then there's going to be accountability at the front door of A.J. Preller as general manager if this does not work out. Has to work out the next 2 years.
Do you think Manny Machado cares about prospects in El Paso? Not at all. They want to win now. So the fact that AJ is trading those prospects has got to make the veterans feel really good. Like, they're finally in a good spot here. So, I agree here with James. The Padres have been just so blah for so long that it's wonderful to see them to be relevant right now in the world of baseball. And whenever there's a trade or a free agent, San Diego is always in the conversation. When did that happen?
Well, that happened because of Peter Seidler's relationship with A.J. Preller and giving him the blank check to do it, and then A.J. overspent the blank check. Okay, let's do one more social media before we put a lid on this.
Okay, let's go here and do a little slap shot. And this is from Roger. He says, yes, the Jets and the days of Don Hall and Dick Roberge, always great games against the New Haven Blades at the New Haven Arena.
He's talking about we did a thing on the movie Slap Shot, a movie review. And I told all these stories about when I was in, quote, the Eastern Hockey League, which was where that was, the Long Island Ducks and the Johnstown Jets and the New Haven Blades, etc. And obviously the Hanson brothers, AKR, the real name was the Carlson brothers. And I spent 4 years in that league, and virtually all the stories in Slapshot were true. But boy, this guy's probably seen a few power plays in his life. If he's quoting Don Hall, former NHL goaltender, and Dick Roberge, that goes back into the late 1960s and the early 1970s. So he's seen a few slap shots and power plays in his life.
Yeah, it's cool that you live that whole thing.
I didn't think it was cool. 9-hour bus trip one way in a blizzard to Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
But you were in your 20s back then, probably. You were young. You're on the bus with these athletes, and that would still be kind of a cool adventure.
I will give you a sidebar. John and I came up with something we decided to do. We are working on a project, the greatest baseball movies of all time, the greatest football movies of all time, the greatest basketball movies of all time, greatest hockey movies or other sports movies of all time. So we're in the process of trying to package all this. So we will have a series of interviews that we will run that you will get a kick out of, because the response we got when we did this one-off on Slapshot, where I was and what I experienced, we got such positive vibes back from hockey fan that we're going to do this going forward with the best baseball movies. It's always a great arguing point. So that'll be coming down the road. We'll tell you when we're going to spin it off for you.
Yeah, I like that. Plus, it's always nice to have a few of those recorded shows just in case, that we have a little disruption in our schedule.
Or we don't get along any longer and you would like to do it solo. Yeah. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this Monday bonus podcast. Man, we covered a ton of topics on the table. We're here Mondays at 1 p.m. Pacific, Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. Build it, fix it, guarantee you'll like it for the rest of 2024, thanks to DIXIELINE. John, take a deep breath. We'll see what's left of the Olympics to watch. Here comes Padre Dodger baseball. We got 7 weeks of pennant race baseball. It's going to be fun. And when we don't have time for that, we got time for the NFL Notebook.
And oh my God, I'm just overwhelmed.
There's so much going on. Have a great day. We'll see you come Thursday.
I'm looking forward to it.
And thank you for being with us and making this podcast great. Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.